Let me come back to this notion of self-surrender that Therese speaks of, because you have to understand this in the context of her life. When she speaks of self-surrender, she's not speaking of giving up, and she's not speaking of surrendering into fate or into destiny or into some mysterious power or something. She's speaking of surrendering into God's love. And so she's speaking of self-surrender into a deeper relationship that will finally blossom in the ultimate manifestation of that relationship that she begins here on earth, but is finally finished in its beauty and in its culmination in heaven. So she really understood this self-surrender much more clearly in her dying, where she realized that she couldn't do anything. The self-surrender that Therese is speaking of is the traditional abandonment into divine providence that has been traditionally such an important part of spirituality. So it's the surrender into the reality of God's love, and it's doing what we can do to foster God's kingdom, but not attempting to do what we can't do and bully God's kingdom into existence. It doesn't work. So it's much more what her notion of self-surrender is much more congruent with Francis de Sales and Francis of Assisi, when their spirituality is that we do what we can to foster God's kingdom, and we don't get involved in a willful way in trying to do things we can't do, and then we pray for the wisdom to know the difference. And that self-surrender of Therese then becomes an important understanding for her to not move off the path of love into a non-violence either to herself or to other people.